there, my name is Amy Small and I am the founder of Knit Collage, a business I began almost 14 years ago, coming up on 14 in January. So along with an incredible team, a small yet mighty team, we design unique hand-spun yarns, knitting and crochet patterns, and we host make-alongs twice a year. In these make-alongs, I share all of the things that I deeply care about, that I deeply believe have the power to change our lives. Knitting, crochet, yarn appreciation, yarn love, community, creativity, and mindfulness. So this is where I was when I began my knitting journey over 20 years ago, quite a long time ago. I was clueless. I bought all of this gorgeous yarn and it never became anything more than a half-knitted project that was later discarded and donated. I didn't know how to get good support or learn elusive new techniques. Despite not knowing this, I kept accumulating more yarn and trying over and over again. I simply could not stay away from the gorgeous yarn and stunning projects that inspired me. It felt like they were calling me and inviting me to play with them, to dance with them, to lean into my creativity, to learn new techniques, and to challenge myself. So all this time, as I was kind of trying to figure it out on my own, I was by myself. I was knitting solo. I didn't have a single friend to help teach me or clue me in on the difference between yarn weights or what all the abbreviations meant. And I had no one cheering me on and supporting me when I actually achieved something hard and new. So this lasted for about a decade, and it wasn't until I started my spinning business, Knit Collage, and it really became established that I felt slightly more advanced and knowledgeable. But I was still solo. I was doing it all alone, and that was hard. That stunk. So what I realized after that long and lonely knitting path is that knitting has taught me so much about myself, and it's helped me so much in my life, especially by freeing this pent-up creativity that got stamped out of me growing up in our world that supports conformity. So making things helped me discover that inner artist, that inner child artist that used to be alive and well. And now it really permeates every single thing I do and how I show up. I'm more free to let what's in my heart or what I just feel moved to do come out through my needles or my hook in a creative, free flow of self-expression. I care less about what other people think and more confident in all the beautiful things I make that are beautiful to me. Maybe not to everybody, but to me. But of course, knitting and crochet go beyond creativity, and there are countless benefits. One of my second favorites being patience. There's no way to successfully rush a knitting and crochet project. If you do, you'll likely pay for it later and have to rip out. My knitting is always teaching me patience, and that helps me immensely in how I show up for my boys. It's something I constantly need to practice in how I parent. It's also brought me to this incredible realization that I can figure anything out. I know it sounds bananas, but if I can steek a sweater, which is where you cut into it, or figure out a difficult lace charted pattern, I can most definitely figure out a tricky inventory or accounting issue I'm facing in the business. I may need help. I may need to ask for support. But the small, low-stakes step of achieving something with yarn and needles and a hook and getting it led to the massive ripple effect of then feeling like I can figure out other things in other areas of my life. Super powerful. This is how our Knit Collage biannual make-alongs came to be. Through these events, a group of makers gathers together to learn, problem solve, get creative, learn in new techniques, end with a beautiful finished object, and of course, connect. So we just wrapped up our spring make-along recently, and it was just incredible. I want to encourage you to watch the celebration video where we share all of the community members' projects in a compilation video. We hosted more Zooms, events, and made tons of connections with each other. There was more teaching and help and more mind-blowing creativity happening daily. But then it all ends after 8 weeks What I realized 3 years ago when I began our Creative Knitters membership was that I really wanted a way to keep the conversation going and the friendships alive that we made in the Make Along. That conversation is simply one that's about yarn, any yarn, not necessarily ours, knitting, of course, and crochet, learning new techniques, sharing favorite patterns, tools, and of course, cheerleading each other with heartfelt appreciation and love for what we were all making. And underneath the fun part of geeking out about yarn is, of course, this truth that we all know that knitting makes us better. Some of those things I shared earlier. It's a tool we can use to become more creative, confident, relaxed, patient, and happy. So with all of this in mind, I came up with this simple membership. It's very basic. And the idea is that it ties into our make-alongs and what we do here at Knit Collage, but it really goes beyond our yarns and our patterns. I would love to invite you to go deeper with me and join in on all the fun. So, like I mentioned, this group started around 3 years ago, and it started with a very small group of founding members. We're ready to open up membership again. It's something that only happens twice a year. We may not open up again in 6 months if we get a lot of people who join in. I have a number in mind that's our cap. So there are parts of Creative Knitters that tie into the business, like I said, but tons that go way beyond what we do here. So I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about what it is all about. All right, so the first big thing you get when you join Creative Knitters is help sessions. So this is arguably the most valuable aspect of Creative Knitters. What happens when you make a fatal error in your knitting or crochet project and you have no idea what to do? This still happens to me all the time. You need help, and you need expert help, right? You need someone to help you in the moment right there to figure out what's going on. So we came up with a simple solution to this problem. When you join Creative Knitters, you get one help session a week with our knitting and crochet teachers, Cheryl and Ann. These are one-on-one, led on Zoom, and they're 30 minutes long. They are invaluable. You can ask them all sorts of questions: how to customize your sweater to fit you a little bit better, how to figure out something that doesn't seem right, or how to figure out a really tricky instruction and pattern. There's nothing you can't ask. We just ask that you give us a little heads up when you sign up for your help session so that we can prepare anything we may need to before we go into it. So the help sessions are a big piece of Creative Knitters. You also get access to a video vault that is yours forever and hosted on Teachable. So right when you join in, you get access to over 130 video tutorials taught by me. There are simple basics like how to read a yarn label, the difference between yarn weights, different cast on techniques, and different stitch tutorials, increases and decrease. It's all the stuff I wish I had known when I started out. I spent hours when I was first starting knitting on YouTube trying to find good tutorials, and it's hard. Sometimes you find good ones, sometimes you don't. If you have enjoyed learning from me in any of my online classes and you like the way I teach, then this is a great place for you to be and to find value. I go into a ton of more advanced techniques as well, like brioche, colorworks, steeking, the list goes on. This year, Cheryl is teaching a new class, which is really fun, and it's a stitch block of the month. So you have access to all of the previous months she's already done, and then the ones that we still have remaining, and these will become a blanket that you can stitch up together like a patchwork blanket. It's a great way to learn new stitches. Each month we have one big learning event. And for the most part, these classes are geared towards learning something new that is knitting, crochet, or fiber related. Although we have been known to go in different directions, but for the most part, they are new techniques that you will learn so that you can look back at the end of the year and say, oh my gosh, I learned so much from Creative Knitters and I truly up-leveled my skills. So last weekend we learned how to stack stitches from Zandy Peters. It was incredible. This past year we learned Tunisian crochet with Tony Lipsy. We learned how to design our own hat patterns with Shayna Billow. And one of my favorites was learning how to do botanical dyes from Tammy of A Wing and a Prayer Farm. We also have team members that come and teach us as well. So Laurel has taught us how to fix all of the mistakes. That's a staple. It lives in Teachable and Dropbox. And it's a wonderful way for you to figure out, okay, if I have a cable drop stitch, how do I fix that mistake? This September, we have a virtual retreat coming up, and Cheryl on the team is going to teach us how to put zippers into our knitting and crochet projects, which should be really fun. Community, of course, is a big part of the Creative Knitters membership. Accountability and cheerleading is really what it's all about. We host our community in a private Facebook group, and we encourage you to connect and cheerlead with each other. Posts here can really be about any project and any yarn. It doesn't have to be about knit collage at all. We host about 6 or 7 community Zooms, so more than one a week, where you can connect with folks on your schedule. They're all different time zones and times and days of the week, and each one has a theme like favorite project books or tools so that we can really dive into learning something but also connecting. So this is a great place to say too that any skill set is welcome. We have true beginners that have not knit before ever, and they are learning how to knit with us. And we have lots of experienced crafters who have been knitting for decades. Expert knitters know that ripping is part of knitting, right? Even after 20 years of knitting myself, I still constantly make mistakes, and I learn and I grow from them. So my hope for this community is that it can really be a place where any skill set will feel comfortable to share their wins and their failures, to come and get help and feel welcomed, because there's no knitting or crochet question that is stupid or dumb. This is the place where we learn and grow together. We connect members by place, which is a lot of fun. So you have a small group in your area that you are free to connect how you want, if you want to in real life. And if you travel, like member Maureen did last winter to Australia, you can go find a Creative Knitter member when you travel too. So there's all sorts of ways to connect by location. The next thing you get, and this is a huge one and it's becoming a bigger one, is early access and just everything VIP as it relates to the knit collage world. So for our make-alongs, you get 2 days of early access, which is pretty darn exciting, because if you've joined in them before, you know that many yarns go out of stock like almost immediately when we open things up. So this is a huge benefit. You also get early access to sale yarns. I'm putting together a big sample sale for our creative knitters. It's going to just be like all these one-off pieces from our collaboration with Ken Yarn and different yarns from my last trip to India. So lots of benefits like that. We also do free patterns, like all sorts of fun freebies for you, and a once a year gift. And I'm gonna get into that gift a little bit later. But this is really awesome because our yarn is all handmade in some way. It takes a long time to make and to get it, so it's a big perk. You also get a very cool thing we have just added in, which is designing a yarn, designing a creative knitter's yarn. So on my last trip to India, I taught a class for the membership, and I asked that they all, if they like, submit a design for a yarn, a recipe, and I let them have the opportunity to design a yarn with me in India when I went. So we had, I think, 26 or 28 people just take me up on it, and it was just so cool. I'm going to share some pictures here. They're incredibly creative, beautiful yarns. And what we decided to do is vote on the ones we all like the best as a community. We got it to the top 3, and we are planning to gift those top 3 in mini skeins, 3 mini skeins, to all the members as a yearly gift. So really a fun thing to do and to be a part of the knit collage world and the yarn designing world, and lots of behind the scenes from that trip as well. So the last thing is that you get a credit of $10 in loyalty points. It's just $10, but we call them loyalty points every single month. And if you don't use them one month, they just accumulate. So you can use them anytime and they never expire. They are all yours. If you know you love doing our make-alongs, you could just use them twice a year for our make-alongs. Creativity, of course, is a big part of Creative Knitters, and in everything we do, we try to infuse it with an element of bringing out your inner artist and your creativity. Nothing pushy, nothing too intense, but just a light push and hey, let's do you. Let's lean into you doing more of your creative thing. I think this year, one really fun thing we have that is just a fun way to do that is we have a year-long plant-based fiber make-along happening. And if you decide to join, you'll get all the details on that, but it's just any kind of plant fiber, knit or crochet project, year-long. It should be really, really fun. It's very open-ended. It's just a fun way for us to connect on different patterns, different fibers than many of us have used in the past. Okay, so I think that is everything. The cost to join is $38 a month. It's a cost that increased. We are always adding more to the video vault and to our class recordings, so it gets more valuable over time. You have the option to pay monthly, or if you want a little bit of a discount, you can pay for the whole year upfront. And like I mentioned, we open it twice a year. We may not open it up in February again. We'll see. If we get a lot of folks to sign up, then we'll probably leave it for a whole year. So registration will open on August 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and we keep it open for a week, closing on August 23rd. Right when you join in, you get access to that video vault, to the class recordings, to the community, and we will immediately have 2 fun welcome Zooms, one with me, where we all get to know each other as members, and then one with our knitting and crochet coaches, Cheryl and Anne, who will tell you how the help sessions work and give you tips on how to get the most use from those. So I invite you to join me on this new friend-filled creative adventure. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if there's one aspect of the membership that I spoke about that really speaks to you. I would love to hear from you, and thank you so much for joining me.